Most financial advice that you've ever been given tends to focus on saving more, spending less, prepare for the future. Now, none of that is necessarily wrong, but at some point we have to ask ourselves the question, what is all of this money actually for? What are we saving for? Because we can keep saving and saving, and guess what? The Grim Reaper doesn't care how much money you have. Neither does the grave. Today, we're going to talk about the ant, the grasshopper, and this one question that changes how you think about all your financial decisions. I remember being at one of my first financial conferences. It was in New Orleans. Hot, sweaty ballroom, a couple hundred people in there waiting for the next speaker. And the speaker gets up and talks about the Aesop fable about the ant and the grasshopper. Of course, I've heard this fable before, the story before. But he applied it to finance, and that's the first time I've heard it applied to money in that way. A short version of the story goes like this. It's summertime, there's an ant and a grasshopper, and the grasshopper is singing, dancing, playing music, enjoying time, and the ant is busy working, collecting food and supplies for winter. Neither of these two can understand the other perspective. The grasshopper says, "What are you doing? Why are you working so hard? Why are you working so much? It's nice out. Let's have some fun." And the ant says, "I don't understand why you're not doing the work. Winter's coming. You're going to be out of luck." So we've got two opposite views here. So the grasshopper is about playing and enjoying life. The ant is about working and preparing for the future. Now, of course, winter comes. The ant's ready. The ant has all the supplies and food. And the grasshopper says, "Uh-oh, I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything about it." And the ant survives, and the grasshopper dies. Now, there's some morals to this, and this is what that speaker was talking about. The moral is something about there's a time for work and there's a time for play, sort of, but mostly it's about delaying gratification. It's about preparing for the future, saving for the future. And in his book, Die with Zero, Bill Perkins asks an interesting question. That's a great moral, but when does the ant ever get to play? When does the ant ever get to play? Because we can delay gratification until it's too late. And so a lot of our financial advice, if we get any, tends to focus on the virtues of the ant. Right? The time value of money. Prepare for the future. Save for the future. I have to work. I have to save. That's what, if we get any education, it tends to be about this. And if you take on the virtues of the ant, you will grow your wealth. You will accumulate wealth. If you be an ant, there are very few guarantees. This is as close to a guarantee as you can think of. If you be an ant, if you take on the virtues of an ant, you will grow your wealth. There's an old saying, Dick Wagner, a pioneer in financial life planning, said that the basics of money are pretty simple. Spend less than you make, save a little for the future, and don't do anything stupid. And if you do those things, just like an ant, you're going to generate wealth. But then you got to ask the question, what is the point? Why are we saving this money? Because it's not just to amass a fortune that you can swim around in like Scrooge McDuck. Money is never an end. It should never be treated as a goal. Money is a tool. That is, money is a means to some other end. Money can make life easier, yes, because it can fund other ends. It can fund other things. Having money by itself, if you have this stack of cash and you're on a deserted island somewhere, it is worthless to you. So money is a tool. Money is not a goal. So imagine this person taking his stack of cash and he delays gratification all the way up until the point he meets the Reaper. And the Reaper, not impressed with this stack of cash. The Reaper says, "Time's up, buddy. You can't take it with you." At some point, you're going in the grave. Now, some of you might be saying, "Well, but I can leave this to my kids." Fair enough. But you could also use it with your kids while you're still alive to enjoy it with them so that they can enjoy it with you instead of having guilt money. inheritance money. So what's the money for? That's the main question. Why are we saving? What's the point of being an ant if we don't know what we're going to use this money for? See, it makes sense though. It's easy to understand why there's the focus on the ant, because nobody wants to be broke, right? So this underscores the reason that we want to save. Of course, we got the ant education growing up, but also nobody wants to be broke. Nobody wants to be poor. This is a survival mechanism. If you follow your family tree back long enough, you'll see ancestors living in tribal times. And to them, survival was the goal of life. Survive long enough to procreate. That is about it. It was all about surviving. It was not about thriving. And in order to survive, we had to pay close attention to threats. This is called a negativity bias. Negativity bias says, I need to make sure that I catch every threat, even if sometimes I catch something that's not a threat. So I missed an opportunity. That's okay, because I survive until tomorrow to look for another opportunity. If I miss a threat, that is a multiply by zero situation. I'm out of the game. And those ancestors passed on those genes. The people back in those days who were busy looking for opportunities and missed threats didn't survive to become our ancestors. So this negativity bias is coded in our DNA. It's coded in us. And it's quite easy to think about how to survive. Humans are good at thinking about how to survive, but we're not as good at thinking about how to thrive, because we're not living in tribal times anymore. So this hyper-focus on the ant, this hyper-focus on survival, means that we want to avoid the worst-case scenario at all costs, which is, in modern times, having too much life left at the end of your money. We don't want to run out of money. Again, this makes sense, and it makes sense especially when we have this lens of, I need to survive. And so saving, and saving more, helps prevent this situation where I've got too much life left at the end of my money. I don't want to run out of money. But is that really the point of life? Just not running out of money? Is that all you really want to do? Because not running out of money is very easy. Sell everything you own, move to Nepal, one of the cheapest countries in the world to live, move up north, find a village, you'll be the richest person in the village. Never going to run out of money. Probably even solve the social comparison problem, because you'll be the richest person in the village. Or maybe you don't want to move to Nepal. Push everything around that you own in a shopping cart, sleep under a bridge, and eat cat food. It's easy to not run out of money. But I think those exaggerated examples help show you that people want to do more than just survive. People want to do more than just not run out of money. So we don't want to just survive, we want to thrive. But we can't thrive if our only view is saving so that we don't run out of money. So yes, it is a mistake to have too much life left at the end of our money, but it is also a mistake to have too much money left at the end of your life. If you have too much money left at the end of your life, that means you had money that you didn't get to enjoy. That means you worked too hard to get money that you didn't need. You worked too long. You worked too much. You sacrificed your family. You sacrificed other things you could have done to get money that you didn't spend. That's a waste. In his book, Die with Zero, again, Bill Perkins says, it's fascinating that more people are afraid of running out of money than they are of wasting the one life that they have. And so now we're back to these two, the ant and the grasshopper. Everybody focuses on the ant, but nobody looks at the fact that the grasshopper had some good points. The grasshopper has something to say. You only live once. This is our one life. Life is short. You get 4,000 weeks. You get maybe 90 years, 85 years. You get a few dozen trips around around the sun. We're on a rock, spinning around a star. And after a few dozen times, we got to go. Enjoy time while we're here. Now, I'm not saying stop being an ant and start being a grasshopper. This isn't an either-or thing. That's a false dichotomy. A false dichotomy is when something is presented as an A or B choice, but that's not true. You don't have to be an ant or a grasshopper. What I'm saying is that both of these characters could learn something from the other one. Because the question isn't, should we save? The question is, what are we saving for? Right? We should save, but the question is, what are you saving for? Because if you if you don't know what you're saving for, if you can't answer that question, and the goal of your money is to get money, that's worth sitting with.